Grace Turner was still in her work clothes when the message arrived. She stood at the kitchen counter, one hand resting on a half-chopped onion, the other holding her phone. Her daughter Lily was curled up on the couch behind her, knees tucked in, headphones on, quietly watching a cartoon. Grace hadn't even unlocked her phone yet when it buzzed again, then again, like whoever was texting expected instant obedience. She read the message slowly. "We planned a family reunion at your beach house. 45 people. 4 days. Please stock the fridge by Friday." Grace felt her stomach drop. No hello. No question. Nor the dates free. Just a statement written like an order. It was from her older sister, Denise. Grace stared at the screen, hoping she was misunderstanding something. She typed back one word. No. The typing bubbles appeared almost immediately. Disappeared. Then returned. "We're coming anyway," Denise wrote. "What are you going to do about it?" Grace locked her phone and set it face down. She took a deep breath and turned back to the cutting board, even though her hands were shaking. Lily patted over in her socks, hair messy, eyes sleepy. "Mom, are you okay?" Lily asked. Grace forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart. Just family drama." Lily nodded quietly, like this was something she understood too well. Grace Turner was 40 years old and worked as a senior nurse anesthetist at a large hospital near the coast. She lived with her husband Daniel and her daughter Lily, in a peaceful beach community an hour away from the town she grew up in. Lily was 10 now, thoughtful and gentle, the kind of child who noticed everything but rarely spoke first. Grace had raised her mostly on her own during the early years, long before Daniel came into their lives. Grace's family still lived inland in the same town where everyone believed family success belonged to everyone. Her parents had 3 children, Denise, Grace, and their younger brother Eric. Grace was the middle child, the reliable one, the fixer. When her career finally stabilized and her income grew, she did what she thought a good daughter should do. She helped. She paid off her parents' lingering debts, covered their property taxes when they complained every year, sent money monthly so groceries were never a concern. When Eric lost his job, Grace quietly paid 2 months of his rent. When Denise needed help after her divorce, Grace transferred money without asking questions. And 5 years earlier, when Grace bought the beach house, it wasn't meant to be a symbol. It was supposed to be a safe place. A reward for years of overtime and missed holidays. "This is the family house now," her mother had said the first time she walked onto the deck. Grace laughed then. She didn't realize it was a warning. From that moment on, the beach house stopped being Grace's in her family's eyes. Visits were announced, not requested. Dates were assumed. Her sister would text, "We'll be there next weekend," like Grace ran a hotel instead of a home. They left messes. Sand in beds. Dirty dishes piled high. Food wrappers shoved behind cushions. Something always broke and somehow no one ever knew how. Grace paid for cleaners and repairs without complaint. She told herself this was normal. That family was messy. That money didn't matter as long as people were together. What she couldn't ignore was how they treated Lily. Lily wasn't loud. She didn't push her way into groups. She loved drawing animals and building quiet worlds with her toys. Noise overwhelmed her. Crowds made her shrink inward. Grace's parents never said anything cruel directly, but their actions spoke loudly. Denise's kids and Eric's kids were real grandchildren. Lily was treated like an extra. At holidays, the other children received carefully wrapped gifts. Lily's were last minute. In photos, she was often left standing at the edge. Once, Grace overheard her mother introduce the grandchildren proudly, then gesture to Lily and say, "And that's Grace's daughter. Not our granddaughter. Just Grace's." Grace kept telling herself they would change. She believed that until last summer. The breaking point came during 4th of July weekend at the beach house. Grace had taken rare time off work to make it special. She rented a boat, planned meals, and made sure every child had something fun to do. On the morning of the trip, Grace was inside on a work call when she noticed the noise outside suddenly grow louder. By the time she walked down to the dock, everyone was already boarding the boat. Coolers loaded. Music blasting. Kids laughing. Everyone, except Lily. Lily sat at the end of the dock, legs pulled close, her sketchbook resting in her lap. "Why aren't you on the boat?" Grace asked, kneeling beside her. Lily shrugged. "Aunt Denise said there wasn't space." Grace looked up. There was plenty of room. She counted seats. Denise met her eyes and smiled tightly. "We're at capacity," Denise said. "Safety rules." Grace knew it wasn't true. Before she could speak, one of the kids muttered, "She's not even a real cousin." No one corrected him. Lily lowered her eyes. "It's okay, Mom," she whispered. "I'll stay here." Grace felt something inside her snap. That night, after fireworks lit up the sky, Lily handed Grace a drawing. It showed the boat, the fireworks, and a small figure sitting alone on the dock. "That's me," Lily said quietly. "I don't mind. Side characters are okay." Grace barely slept that night. And from that moment on, every demand from her family felt heavier. Every assumption felt sharper. So when the reunion text arrived months later, 45 people for days, no permission, Grace already knew something had to change. She just hadn't realized how final it would be. Grace didn't respond to the reunion message right away. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table later that night, scrolling through the screenshots Denise had dropped into the family group chat. There was a full Facebook event page titled Turner Family Beach Bash, written in bright letters with laughing emojis. The cover photo was Grace's beach house, pulled from an old picture she had once posted online. Under the location it read, "Grace's Beach House, Our Family Place." Grace's name was listed as host. Room assignments were already being discussed. Someone joked about how wild the bunk room would be. Another asked who was bringing fireworks. Grace scrolled further and felt her chest tighten. Denise had commented, "Don't worry about Lily. He's sensitive. Probably better if she stays with Daniel's parents." Grace's mother had reacted with a heart. Someone else asked, "Is she not coming at all?" Denise replied, "She can visit for the day. Overnight bunks are for the real cousins." Grace stared at the words until the screen blurred. Her hands shook, but her face stayed still. She didn't show Daniel yet. She wasn't ready for the anger she knew would come. The next morning, Grace called her mother. "Mom," Grace said carefully, "did you see the reunion page?" "Oh yes," her mother replied brightly. "Isn't it exciting?" "You didn't ask me about dates," Grace said. "We knew you'd say yes," her mother replied. "You're always working anyway." Grace took a slow breath. "And the comments about Lily?" There was a pause. "Oh, those were jokes," her mother said lightly. "You know, Denise, Lily is different. She doesn't like noise. We don't want her uncomfortable." "You mean you don't want to adjust anything for her?" Grace said. Her mother's tone hardened. "Don't make this ugly, Grace. Either let us use the house or don't. But don't accuse us of being cruel. You're being selfish." Selfish. Grace hung up before she said something she couldn't take back. She sat there for a long time, staring at the phone, realizing how often she had swallowed words just like this. That afternoon, Grace made a decision. Not a dramatic one. A quiet one. She called the property management office for the beach community. "This is Grace Turner, Unit 8C, she said. "I need to update my access list and arrange security for the weekend." Within minutes, all recurring guest passes under her family's names were removed. She reset the gate code. Then she opened the smart lock app for the house and deleted every old entry. Her parents' code. Denise's emergency access. Gone. Next, she opened the shared family credit card she had set up years ago, just in case. Recent charges filled the screen. Groceries, fireworks, bulk supplies. Grace transferred the balance back to her account and froze the card. "Are you sure?" the app asked. "Yes," Grace whispered. By the time Lily came home from school, everything was done. "Are Grandma and everyone coming this weekend?" Lily asked cautiously over dinner. Grace met her daughter's eyes. "No," she said gently. "Just us." Lily nodded, then hesitated. "Did I do something wrong?" Grace's heart cracked. She reached across the table and took Lily's hands. "No, you didn't do anything wrong. Ever." Lily studied her face, then relaxed. "Okay," she said. Friday afternoon, Grace watched the security camera feed as cars pulled up to the gate. Her parents' SUV. Denise's van. Kids pressed against windows. Coolers stacked high. Denise called immediately. Grace didn't answer. The gate guard's voice came through moments later. "They're insisting they have permission." "They don't," Grace said calmly. "Please ask them to leave." Denise's voice exploded through the speaker. "You locked us out. Are you serious?" "Yes," Grace said. "The house isn't available." You're punishing us over a child, Denise snapped. No, Grace said. I'm protecting mine. The cars eventually turned around. One by one they left. The gate slid shut. Grace exhaled for the first time all day. That evening, Lily built a small fort on the deck with beach towels and chairs. Can I put my hammock up here? She asked. Grace smiled. Anywhere you want. Later, Lily handed Grace a new drawing. It showed the beach house again, but this time, everyone was together. No one left out. I like this version better, Lily said. So do I, Grace replied. The phone didn't stop buzzing that night. Grace ignored it while she helped Lily toast marshmallows over the small grill on the deck. The ocean air was warm, the sky fading into soft pinks and oranges. Lily laughed when one marshmallow caught fire and Grace laughed with her, even as her phone vibrated again on the table behind her. Later, after Lily went to bed, Grace finally looked. Her mother had sent a long message. I can't believe you did this to us. We had church friends with us. Your father's blood pressure is dangerously high. We had to get a motel because of you. Then another. We already bought all the food. Think of the children. You ruined their summer. Grace felt the familiar pull of guilt rise in her chest, the reflex to explain, to fix, to apologize. She set the phone down instead. Daniel came out onto the deck and sat beside her. They're blaming you, aren't they? He asked quietly. Yes, Grace said. They always do, he replied. She leaned into his shoulder and watched the waves roll in, reminding herself that guilt wasn't the same as being wrong. The next morning brought new messages. Denise posted in the family group chat before Grace could leave it. Grace locked us out of our beach house. She hired security like we're criminals. All because she's oversensitive about Lily. Her father replied, ungrateful behavior. After everything we sacrificed. Her brother Eric stayed silent in the group chat, but sent Grace a private message instead. You could have at least warned us. We took time off work. Grace stared at that message for a long time. She typed, deleted, then typed again. I've been warning you for years, she finally wrote. You just didn't listen. Eric never responded. Grace exited the group chat and muted every family thread. Her chest felt tight, but lighter too, like she had finally set down something she'd been carrying too long. That afternoon, Lily sat at the table drawing while Grace answered emails for work. Mom. Lily said softly. Yes, sweetheart. Are Grandma and Aunt Denise mad at me? Grace closed her laptop immediately. No, she said firmly. They're mad at me. Lily frowned. Why? Because I said no, Grace replied. Lily considered that. Is saying no bad? Grace smiled sadly. No. Sometimes it's how you keep people safe. Lily nodded, then went back to her drawing. Grace watched her for a moment, realizing how much Lily had absorbed over the years without ever being told. That evening, Grace received a message that surprised her. It was from her cousin Rachel. I heard what happened, Rachel wrote. I'm proud of you. And if you're still at the beach house, my kids would love to come by. Lily deserves cousins who are kind. Grace smiled for the first time all day. Rachel arrived just before sunset with her 2 kids and a bag of groceries. They're furious with me for coming, Rachel said as they hugged. Apparently I picked a side. Grace glanced over at Lily, who was already showing Rachel's daughter her drawings. Did you? Grace asked. Rachel watched them for a moment. Yes, she said. I did. They grilled dinner together and ate outside, laughing when the kids argued over whose marshmallow was the biggest. Lily's laughter came easier as the night went on, less careful, more free. Later, Rachel leaned against the railing beside Grace. I saw the Facebook comments, she said quietly. About the real cousins. I should have said something then. I'm sorry. You're here now, Grace replied. That matters. Rachel nodded. It really does. The messages continued after the weekend ended. Voicemails. Emails. Accusations. None of them mentioned Lily, not the boat incident, not the comments, not the years of quiet exclusion. They talked about embarrassment, money, inconvenience. Grace saw it clearly now. She hadn't been a daughter to them anymore. She'd been a resource. One night Daniel asked, Do you want to send a final message? Explain everything. Grace shook her head. I already did. They just don't like the answer. 2 weeks later, Grace returned to the beach house with Lily and 2 of Lily's school friends. The house felt different, quieter, lighter. Lily handed Grace a new drawing that evening. "This one's better," Lily said shyly. Grace taped it to the fridge. "I think so too." The second weekend at the beach house felt nothing like the ones before. There were no raised voices, no slammed doors, no constant questions about who took whose room. Grace noticed it the moment she unlocked the door. The house didn't feel tense. It felt peaceful. Lily ran ahead with her two friends, laughing as they dropped their bags and argued about who would take the top bunk. Grace stood in the doorway for a second, watching them, feeling something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Relief. Daniel came up behind her. "You okay?" "Yes," Grace said. "I just didn't realize how loud everything used to be." That night they cooked together without rushing. Lily helped chop vegetables, proud of the small task. Music played softly instead of blaring. No one complained. No one demanded. Grace realized that the chaos she'd accepted for years had never been normal. It had just been familiar. The next morning, Grace sat on the deck with her coffee while the kids played in the sand below. She opened her email and saw another message from her father. "You embarrassed us in front of our friends," it read. "You owe us an apology." Grace read it once, then again. For the first time the words didn't sting. They felt empty. Daniel sat beside her. "What are you going to do?" he asked. Grace closed the email. "Nothing," she said. She didn't reply. She didn't explain. She didn't defend herself. Instead, she watched Lily race her friends down the shoreline, her laughter carried by the wind. Grace realized she didn't need her parents' approval to know she'd done the right thing. Later that day, Lily climbed into the hammock with a book. Grace noticed how relaxed she looked. Legs dangling, shoulders loose, completely at ease. "Mom," Lily called. "Yes." "Do you think Grandma will ever like me?" Grace sat beside her. "I think some people don't know how to love gently," she said carefully. "But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you." Lily thought about that. "I like it better when it's quiet," she said. "So do I," Grace replied. It struck her then how often she had chosen discomfort to keep others happy, and how rarely she had chosen peace for her own child. That evening, Grace received a message from Rachel again. "Next summer let's plan something small," Rachel wrote. "Just us. We'll ask first." Grace smiled and typed back, "That sounds perfect." She looked around the deck, for chairs pulled close together, not a single one empty out of obligation. She thought about how many years she had spent filling seats for people who didn't truly see her or her daughter. She opened her banking app and reviewed her accounts. The automatic transfers to her parents' account were still scheduled. Grace paused, then canceled them. One by one. Her finger hovered for a second before confirming. Then she pressed done. Her hands shook, but she felt lighter. That night, Lily handed Grace another drawing. It showed the beach house again, but this time no one stood apart. Everyone was together, smiling, calm. "I like this one best," Lily said. Grace hugged her tightly. "Me too." As the waves rolled in and the sky darkened, Grace understood something she hadn't before. Family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about safety. About showing up. About making space. And for the first time in a long time, Grace felt certain she was doing exactly that. The silence didn't last long. A few days after they returned home, Grace received a long email from her mother. It wasn't angry at first. It was sentimental. "I don't recognize you anymore," it began. "You used to be such a good daughter." Grace read the words slowly. The message went on about sacrifices, about how hard motherhood was, about how family stayed together no matter what. There was no mention of Lily. Not a single line asking how she felt. Grace closed the email and didn't respond. She realized then that her mother missed the version of Grace who stayed quiet and paid bills, not the woman she had become. A week later, Denise showed up in person. She stood on Grace's front porch with crossed arms and tight lips. "You really messed things up," Denise said the moment Grace opened the door. "I set boundaries," Grace replied calmly. "You humiliated us," Denise snapped. The kids were crying. "Mom's embarrassed. You always think you're better than us now." Grace shook her head. "This isn't about money. It's about how you treat my daughter." Denise scoffed. "She's too sensitive. The world won't bend for her." Grace's voice stayed steady. "Then she doesn't need to grow up learning that love hurts." Denise stared at her, shocked. Then she turned and left without another word. That night, Grace told Lily the truth in simple words. Some people are upset because I said no, Grace explained. Are we still in trouble? Lily asked. No, Grace said firmly. We're safe. Lily nodded then smiled. I like being safe. Grace tucked her into bed and sat there longer than usual, watching her breathe, thinking about how many years she had mistaken endurance for love. Months passed. The family group chat stayed quiet. The requests for money stopped. So did the invitations. Grace noticed something else too. She slept better. She laughed more. Rachel visited often. Lily made friends who came over without judgment. Holidays became smaller, calmer, happier. One afternoon, Grace found an old photo on her phone, the first picture taken at the beach house years ago. Her mother smiling, arms wide, claiming it for everyone. Grace deleted it. On a warm evening near the end of summer, Grace sat on the deck watching Lily teach a friend how to braid seashell bracelets. Lily looked confident, relaxed, fully herself. Daniel joined Grace and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. You did the right thing, he said quietly. Grace nodded. She finally believed it. She hadn't lost her family. She had chosen her child. And she would do it again, every time. Autumn arrived quietly. The air cooled, the beach emptied, and life settled into a new rhythm. Grace noticed how much space had opened up in her days now that she wasn't managing other people's emergencies. No late-night calls asking for money. No passive-aggressive messages about holidays. The silence felt strange at first, like standing in a room after a loud machine shuts off. But slowly it became peaceful. One evening as Grace folded laundry, Daniel said, "You know they're waiting for you to crack." Grace nodded. "They always are. But you're not going to." "No," she said. "I'm not." For the first time the thought didn't scare her. Lily started thriving in ways Grace hadn't expected. Her teacher sent an email praising her focus and creativity. She joined a small art club after school and came home excited, talking nonstop. "They're quiet," Lily said one day. "And they listen." Grace smiled. She understood exactly what Lily meant. One night, while brushing Lily's hair, Grace asked, "Do you miss Grandma and Aunt Denise?" Lily thought for a moment. "I miss when people were nice," she said carefully. Grace kissed the top of her head. "Me too." The holidays came and for the first time, Grace didn't travel inland. She didn't host. She didn't send checks or apologies. Instead, she decorated the house slowly, letting Lily choose ornaments that made her happy. On Christmas morning, Lily ran to the tree and froze. "These are all for me?" she asked. Grace laughed softly. "Yes." Lily hugged her tightly. "I like our family." Grace felt tears sting her eyes, but they weren't from pain this time. In January, Grace received one final message from her mother. "We're getting older. Someday you'll regret pushing us away." Grace read it calmly. She typed a reply then erased it. Instead, she turned off her phone and went for a walk with Lily along the shoreline. The wind was sharp, the waves restless. Lily ran ahead, collecting shells and calling back stories about each one. Grace realized something important then. Regret didn't come from setting boundaries. It came from betraying herself and her child. That night, Lily showed Grace a new drawing. It wasn't the beach house this time. It was 3 figures holding hands under a wide sky. "This is us," Lily said. Grace taped it to the fridge beside the others. "Yes," she said softly. "It is." Spring returned to the coast slowly, like it was testing whether it was welcome. Grace watched Lily grow more confident with each passing month. She spoke up more, laughed louder, took up space without apologizing for it. Grace realized then how much Lily had been shrinking before, not because of who she was, but because of where she was asked to fit. One afternoon Lily asked, "Mom, why don't we see Grandma anymore?" Grace didn't hesitate. "Because sometimes people love you only when you make things easy for them," she said gently. Lily nodded, thoughtful. "I like it better when love feels calm." "So do I," Grace said. Grace's parents never apologized. Not once. They softened their words over time but never their meaning. Messages turned from angry to distant, from demanding to cold. Grace noticed something surprising. She didn't miss them the way she thought she would. She missed the idea of family. But the reality had always come with conditions. One evening, Grace received an invitation to a small art showcase at Lily's school. Lily had submitted a piece, A detailed drawing of a house by the sea, warm lights glowing through the windows. "That's our house," Lily said proudly. Grace felt her throat tighten. She clapped louder than anyone else in the room. Afterward, Daniel leaned close and whispered, "She's blooming." Grace smiled. She always was. She just needed space. That summer, Grace hosted again, but differently. She invited Rachel and her kids. 2 close friends. Lily's classmates. Everyone asked before coming. Everyone helped clean. Everyone noticed Lily. Grace stood on the deck one evening and realized she no longer flinched when her phone buzzed. The power had shifted, not because she took it but because she stopped giving it away. Late one night, Grace opened an old folder on her computer labeled Family Stuff. Inside were years of bank statements, saved messages, receipts, and guilt-filled emails. She deleted the folder entirely. Then she shut the laptop and slept deeply for the first time in years. In early fall, Grace's brother Eric sent a brief message. "I get it now. I'm sorry I didn't then." Grace stared at the words for a long moment. She replied simply, "I hope you're well." That was enough. Lily turned 11 with a small party at the beach. Just friends. Just laughter. When it was time for cake, Lily looked up at Grace and said, "I don't feel like a side character anymore." Grace knelt and hugged her tightly. "You never were." Lily smiled. "I know. But now I feel it." That night, Grace walked alone along the shoreline. The ocean was calm. Steady. She thought about all the years she'd been taught that love meant sacrifice without limits. That family meant endurance. That saying no was cruelty. She understood now how wrong that had been. Love wasn't loud. It wasn't demanding. Love made room. When winter came, Grace decorated the beach house again. She left 2 chairs empty in the corner, not out of longing but as a reminder. She didn't have to fill every seat. Some people lost access not because she was cruel, but because they refused to be kind. On the last evening of the year, Grace and Lily stood barefoot on the sand, watching the sky darken. Lily held Grace's hand tightly. "I'm glad you chose me," Lily said quietly. Grace swallowed hard and kissed her hair. "There was never a choice," she said. And for the first time in her life she knew it was true. Moral lesson. Protecting your child is never selfish. Family that demands your silence, money, or sacrifice while hurting your child is not love. Real family respects boundaries, and real love never asks you to abandon yourself or your child to earn.